Ancient Albatross here behind the scenes as usual, but we have the Cypher Unlimited crew, our usual suspects of the ever lovely Spiggs 18, the ever awesome Alphadean or simply Dean. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch or subscribe to us over on YouTube. It's a great help for our channel. We really appreciate all the support we've gotten so far. Without further ado, Dean, what are we doing here tonight?
It's going to be a chill night. First of all, Happy New Year, everybody. Glad to see you. Missed out. We've been away for a little while. We do apologize for all that. But it's going to be a chill night. We're going to talk to Charles about New Gamemaster Month. You know, MCG, they always host it, and it's become a tradition around these parts. And we're just looking forward to having a great conversation tonight, you know. And welcome, Charles. And
howdy. Anthony, I think you've got your sound again.
You're muted, Anthony.
Poor Anthony was having sound troubles before.
Okay, well, Anthony's muted. While Anthony's muted, you know what? The other thing that's going on, guys, I don't know if anybody knows on the server, but hey, I'm going to do a selfless plug. Vote for my doggy. He's in the dog contest. You know, he's currently #1. We're hoping to win the contest. You know, he'll be on the cover of America's Favorite Pet. And, you know, if you do a donation, those go to it goes to Paul's. But you don't have to do a donation. You can vote every day during the voting, which is 8 more days of voting. You can vote every day, 1 vote a day for free. Would love it if you guys would vote for my puppo. He's, where are you? Come here, buddy. Come say hi.
This is, as I understand it, a cutest dog contest, and holy crap, he is a contender.
Yes, cute dog.
And you can
right?
vote, and you mentioned it, but I'll just point out, you can vote every day. So if you're voting, you don't have to just vote once.
Just 1 vote a day, you know. When you, like I said, if you feel, are you feeling, you know, very generous, you know, they do have monetary donations that you can do, and each, you know, dollar you give is a vote. So we really appreciate it. So, yes, look at it.
And remind everybody of your doggo's name.
This is Sir Percival. He is the first knight of the Hound Table. And he's a good boy, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you know, we're gonna keep talking. So let's just, you know, get into while Anthony's getting his stuff together. Charles, let everybody know when New Gamemaster Month starts and basically what's the overall premise of what we're doing here.
Yeah. Okay, so New Gamemaster Month is a program that MCG launched 10 or 11 years ago, and we now have a bunch of different partners. I think there's 8 companies in it this year. We have Cobalt Press joining with Tales of the Valiant, and Pinnacle joining with Savage Worlds, but we've also have Chaosium's involved, and Pelgrane Press, and like I said, there's about 8 companies involved. So whatever game you play, whether it's Numenera or Cypher System or any other game, whatever, you got a wide selection to choose from. And it's a program for making the leap from being a player to being a GM. And it's something like, you know, if you've had that creative itch, you think it would be fun, you think it'd be cool, but it seems a little bit of intimidating. It's a program that just takes you from start to finish over the course of the month. It started on Tuesday, but that's okay. You can jump in and catch up. It's really easy. There's a post on the website. It's newgamemastermonth.com. A post on the website every Tuesday and Thursday throughout January, which is New Gamemaster Month. And you go in, you read this post. It tells you a little bit about the topic that we're covering on that particular day. And then for each game, there's a little tab at the bottom, and the game that you're following. So if you're planning on running Numenera, you click on the Numenera tab. If you're going to run Savage Worlds, you click on the Savage Worlds tab, and it gives you some specifics to prep for that game to be the game that you run. And it's everything, right? It's from finding players to buying snacks, but in between, it's like the anatomy of an adventure, and you know, thinking about how encounters are going to unfold and how much you need to know about your setting and your world and your rule system and all that sort of stuff. All easy, all bite-sized chunks, all very actionable things that you can do. But if you've ever been interested in GMing, it's a great program that helps you take that first step. And like I say, it's actionable. At the end of the program, whatever that Friday is, 31 January or whatever, you'll run a game. You'll be a GM.
That's awesome. And, you know, just so everybody gets it, it seems like every year New Game Master Month expands with the companies that are involved, and it's like I said, 8 companies this year. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's a good program, and it's easy for the companies to be involved in. It helps. I mean, the whole idea is that, GMs are what make our hobby grow, right? It's if there's lots of people out there that would love to play games, but maybe they don't have a group, or their group doesn't meet often enough, or they've played a lot and they want a GM, but they bring in new players and so on. So, it's good for everybody to rise this tide and float all the boats.
and just so everybody knows, Charles did mention that they added Tales of the Valiant with Kobo Press, but we also have Delta Green, Savage Worlds, Rune Quest, Trail of Cthulhu, Unknown Armies, Numenera, of course,
Monster of the Week.
And Monster of the Week. Yep. And I mean, Monster of the Week, another great narrative-based game. If you haven't played it, it's awesome. I think that New Game Master Month is just shaping up. We kind of forget about it sometimes, but at the same time, you gotta get excited, especially when it starts becoming active. And we love what it offers the community as a whole. So so this week, each week has a different theme, correct?
Well, it's not so much the weeks. There's 2 lessons, if you will, 2 posts a week, and each post has a slightly different theme. This week. They were both very introductory. The first one kind of is like, here's what you're going to need to get your hands on, right? You're going to perhaps you need a core book for your game, or perhaps you need a free download of their quick start rules, or whatever it is that game you should have. It helps you to get that and tells you, you probably want to review these pages here, check out this section. So it gives you step by step of what to do each time. And it's not a lot. It's like 30 minutes worth of activity each of the lessons, each of the steps.
And now those steps are customized for each different game, correct?
Right. They follow that topic. So like if we have the topic and it's going to talk about how encounters are built, right? It has the whole topic about the general purpose of an encounter of an adventure, what the role that it plays and how you think about encounters as a GM and whatnot. And then each individual game has its own specific set of instructions on what you're going to do that's relevant to that lesson.
And I just like to point out to everybody out there who's watching too, as an experienced GM, a GM who's been GMing for close to 50 years now, I still follow New Game Master Month because, believe it or not, no matter how long you've been doing it, there's always room for growth. There's always something new to learn. Would you agree, Charles?
100%, man. I started GMing in 1979, and I always feel like I can grow my craft. 100%.
And so, yeah.
But to be clear, and your point stands. But also, I just want to say to people that are thinking about this for the first time, this is not like the 4,000 level class about GMing. This is the thing that takes you through and gets you going, and gets you all the fundamentals you need to move into it with confidence. And then, you can get better and better and better over the course of decades to come. But you will, in this program, you'll get all the basics, and at the end, you'll be confident and you'll run a great game.
Which is awesome. And and like I said, I can't agree enough that this being a ground floor instruction, if you will, but it's very much friendly. There's nobody going to be standing over you, with a ruler and telling you that you have to have lessons and so on and so forth.
Wrapping on the knuckles if you mention a stat wrong or something. No, something like that.
We still can't hear you, Anthony. But yeah, so we're going to move on and let's talk about how each week is broken down. You were saying that each week they have a couple of items that they'll talk about, two articles that go on, and explain to our audience exactly, the process that they're going to go through from, of course, the first week is probably talking about doing a session 0 and getting, introduction, so on and so forth.
Yeah, we don't actually really get to that stuff until toward the end. At the beginning, we talk about like the materials you'll need. We talk about the process of finding a time in your gamers and who you want to choose and what game you want to choose. We move on to talking about, like I said, about how what an adventure is, right? Like because all of them work from a published adventure. This is about learning to do it for the first time, and so we don't adventure building and that aspect of GMing, which for many of GMs is the creative drive that draws you to it, is not. We don't want to like cloud it with that. We want you to have the experience of actually doing it. So every game it's with a published adventure. And so it talks about like how the adventure is structured, what its goals are, and then it talks about how an encounter is, and then it talks about how you want to think about all these things. It talks about, actually, even before it gets to that, it talks a little bit about how much you need to know about the setting, the world, and about the rule set that you're using, and whether or not you need to be the master of that who knows every single detail, or whether it's good enough to have a good overview and some confidence about it. Spoiler alert, it's the second one. And so then towards the end, it does talk about your initial session, what you're going to do when you run it, how you're going to work with your players on making characters, and then sort of like the final, like, handouts, props, all that sort of thing that you need, that you might want, or that have a role as GMing, but not necessarily that you need. Then getting the event rolling. Yeah, it's highly focused on. It's like I said, it's totally actionable. You will be given specific things to do. It'll literally say, open your book to page 216 and read the next 4 pages, or whatever. Right? All of the steps are 100% specifics to get you going there. But I would argue that the real point of the process is to help you feel like you can do it, to feel confident about it, because that's the only secret sauce there is to it.
Okay. So, we're going to keep talking about stuff. And since Anthony is having technical difficulties, I'm just going to jump back and forth from the stuff we'll talk about to what I see in the chat. So sure. Jason asks, he says, since MCG, game for the site for New Gamemaster Month is Numenera, how many lessons address general Cypher things outside of just Numenera? Or do any?
So the Numenera lesson plan basically draws on the Numenera Discovery Core book. So that's what you're in. And when it's talking about what you need to know about the system, it's giving you very specifics about, like I said, go read page 38 and 39, and it will tell you about how some aspect of the rules work. But it's not a lesson on how to play that game system, whichever game system you choose, whether you choose that or you choose Tales of the Valiant or you choose Monster of the Week or whatever. It isn't how do you play this game. It will tell you how you teach yourself to play this game if you need to, or how you bone up on the most critical things you need to know within that game's rules and setting. But it's not really about teaching you the system directly at all.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Would you say that? So you've seen it before, Dean? Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say, when you look at New Gamemaster Month, it's very generalized in the sense that it's going to speak to the overall approach to gaming, and also kind of talks about your game master style. Mm-hmm. It'll help you develop that and start getting an idea of what type of game you want to run.
Right.
I think many people coming in too, I think maybe something we could always do, or, just for next year, or whatever, is maybe throw a little survey out where people can kind of even get an idea of which game they would want to run, based on just some overarching ideas and stuff. But if you have an idea of the type of game you want to run, and you sit down to say you want to run Savage Worlds, the advice is generalized enough, but still direct enough to get you what you need to do for that particular adventure.
Right. And the program does not assume that you are an expert on the game that you're going to play, but it also doesn't assume that you're a newbie. It assumes that you chose that game because you're in a position, you either know it to some extent or you're positioned to learn. And what it will teach you is it'll go through, and again, like I said, it'll say, okay, right now we're talking about, let's just say we're talking about the basic rules for how you deal with, encounters or task resolution or whatnot. It won't say, I'm going to teach you how to play Savage Worlds, or I'm going to teach you how to play Tales of the Valiant or 5e, or I'm going to teach you how to play Numenera. but it will say, hey, the key rules that you need to know are on these pages of the book. Just go scan them and make sure that you're comfortable with them.
Right. The chat is over there having a discussion about Tales of the Valiant. Wait a minute, I think thought Black Flag was a cooler name, but they kept it for the SRD, which a lot of people, I don't know if they didn't know or not, but pretty cool there. So, what is your advice for as far as how much time a person who wants to get into the new Game Master Month, how much time do you think they should set aside every week to kind of go through the process?
Right. I'd probably, like, we drop these things on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if those are the days you come in and check the website, it's going to be about an hour a time to sort of read the lesson that you have and then do the things that it says in that lesson. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes, whatever. It's not going to be a huge amount of time. And I'll go further and say that a lot of people who are attracted to DMing are there because they really, they love that aspect of gaming, right? They love that aspect of spinning worlds out of their minds and presenting these things to players and whatnot. So if you have a desire to spend more time, you certainly 100% can, with the only caveat that sometimes the lesson says, you should read these pages. Don't bother reading the rest, because right now it won't make sense to you, or it'll be could be a little overwhelming or whatnot. So I would say that if you spend about an hour on it, 45 minutes or an hour each lesson, a couple hours a week total, you're gonna feel really good about where you are in the process. You're gonna get everything you need. If you want to spend a little bit more, that's fine. Just don't overwhelm yourself. Pace yourself.
So I wouldn't be out of line telling someone that new Game Master Month is probably going to cost them at most 6 hours out of their life, over the course of the month,
Except, of course, that it really is designed for you to run a game, right? So it will be 6 or 8 hours over the course of the month to do the program, and then your game session, right? Which might be another 4 or 5 hours, whatever it is that you do for a game. And it really is focused on the specifics, right? Like when you do the step that says, hey, let's reach out to gamers and reach out to my friends and say, this is what I want to run, and I want to run these dates or whatever. It's designed for you to do that and set a date and the weekend, that last weekend in January, to actually play that game that weekend. Awesome. It's not hypothetical.
Okay, we got another question from the audience. Zio said, he says, what's the last great lesson you learned about GMing?
Oh, wow. So, MCG has put out some games recently that are designed for a very low prep situation, a very improvisational style of play, but with structure to them. Obviously, I'm talking about Devil's Dandy Dogs, and stealing stories for the devil is sort of the key. But you have a certain element of that, even like an Invisible Sun, where perhaps it's not improvisational in its nature, but it's definitely designed for the GM to take the player's goals, the player's build goals that will build and character arcs and whatnot that will contribute to the plot line. And so I think one of the things that I've dealt with, I love those games. Boy, I love those games. I really love Invisible Sun. I've had a lot of great time playing, and I'm going to say it, even running Devil's Dandy Dogs, although I struggle with it because it's just not my personal style. I'm a planner, and so I love to build things in advance. That's what I love to do as a GM. But also, I'm the type of guy that thinks of that fabulous retort 5 minutes too late, which also means that I think of that fabulous plot twist I can throw into my story 5 minutes too late. So it's not my strength, but learning how to do that and adopt those aspects that those games have of being more reactive, not just reactive to what the players bring to the table, but proactive and creating opportunities for the players to bring things in that I would then build on. I don't know if that is the latest or the greatest, but it's one that's like I said, I've been doing it for 35 years, GMing, and that's one that in the last few years has really informed and changed to a certain extent the way I run games.
Awesome.
Hope that helps.
Well, like you said, they're just asking questions from the guys in the audience.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're interested in hearing about what I learned from gaming, but actually,
I am.
the last great thing that I learned about being a GM, honestly, is that if you're excited, your players will feed off of that energy. When
Yeah.
you come to the table with positivity and a little confidence, and you know what, they don't know you're making mistakes. And I've really been able to embrace that so much more. In Cypher System, you is one of those games that opens the door for that because
Mhm.
rules are so flexible and so modular, plug and play.
Right.
So you actually start to be able to see how you can even manipulate games with much more hard-coded rules, much more stringent, ideas about how it goes. You actually have now a way to manipulate that, and you can like really embrace that aspect of the
Right.
storytelling. So
Right. Right. And I also say that is something that is baked into the new Game Master Month program. To bring it back to that, is this idea that um, you do not have to have like an encyclopedic knowledge of your game system. You don't have to have an encyclopedic knowledge of your setting. You do need like good foundations, sort of a good vision and a good confidence in what you do. But it's not like you say, it's going to be invisible if there's a mistake, something that didn't go the way you expected it to, either because you missed something or did something wrong mechanically, or because you misspoke about some aspect of the game setting. That doesn't matter. That's going to be invisible to the players, and having that sort of confidence um, is a big part of what New Game Master Month is about. Like recognizing, learning that you can, I don't know, that the experience is yours to craft.
exactly, that's pretty cool. Spiked Maple Syrup asked the question in the chat. He said, "What would be your best tips for baking characters into the world so they feel tethered and like they belong there?"
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't want to move because New Game Master Month is about game mastering in general. So I'm not here to necessarily to promote our games, but I would say that the one of the great things is the character arc system that exists within Cypher System. And Cypher System actually drew it out of Invisible Sun, and this is a thing where an Invisible Sun is critical to your character
Right.
advancement. In Cypher System, it is a way to advance characters, but you create you build it the character establishes, the player chooses an arc for the character, and it's it might be to build something or to have a relationship or to get exact revenge or any of the number of sort of themes that you can have. There's subplots to stories and movies and games, and then it gives you steps. Like if what you're trying to do is exact revenge, and your first step would be to identify who you're going at, and then the second step would be to make a plan for how you're going to do it, and the third step would be to implement the beginning of the plan. Like there's specific steps, and you get XP along the way. And what that does is it works both ways. It embeds the characters. It embeds a character's subplot into your main plot of your story, but it also like has that character interacting with the world sort of on their own terms. The player is the proactive force on bringing interaction into the game world with that, and it will inevitably, involve establishing details about that long lost sister you're trying to find, or having elements of the world that the player sort of brought into being. The player maybe didn't invent it; the GM still is bringing it out there, but the player is the one who said, "I have to find a shop that specializes in these weird Middle Eastern curios or whatever." And then the GM kind of comes up with that. Now the player has had a role in shaping what everybody knows about this world. And I think that that's a great way of creating a strong linkage between a character and the player's concept of that character and the world in which the character moves.
And I just want to add to that because you said something that was to me that struck another chord that's kind of critical. Not only is it giving things to tether the player, but it's also
Right.
giving the GM more canon, more fodder to build on.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that's like the world building is being done together. So
right.
I think it's pretty. I think that's a pretty powerful, great thing to bring up, Charles. And I just wanted to because it always triggers something. Starheart Dragon says, if you could give advice to a first-time GM, what would you tell them? What would be one thing you tell them?
Well, I think that goes hand in hand with what New GM Month is about. Like the underlying message underneath all of the specifics that we tell you about how adventures are structured and what you need to know about the world and read page 67, all that sort of stuff. Underneath all of that is the secret sauce is just doing it and feeling confident about it, right? And so I would say to a GM is just just recognize, or a prospective GM, just, to be aware that there's no us and them. Like, there's no special quality to being a GM. It's just somebody who sat down at that end of the table and said, you know what, let's play this game. And you absolutely can do it too. You can, and it will be great. And it's not something, I think a lot of prospective GMs are really afraid they'll get something wrong or they'll mess it up or whatnot. That doesn't happen. There's no such thing, really. Everybody has a good time. I've been gaming for 35 years, RPG gaming for 35 years, and I don't know. I can count the bad experiences on, one hand, probably one hand with several of my fingers down. People just have fun doing it, and you will take people through a fun process, and everybody will enjoy it.
Okay. I mean, now that being said, there's been some comments, and so I wanted to see what your take would be on a couple of these comments that people have made.
Okay.
Sigil Sank, he said, if this event is currently larger introductory for GMs, has there been demand for more tailored workshops to follow up in the past years? Now, I can answer that and say, not that I know of, but
right.
Charles might be able to give us more info to say if it is, and if not, maybe this is something we can think about.
Yeah, 100%. And that sounds like something that would be awesome in a CU. I will say it's kind of outside of the scope of this program. This program is really designed to give people that first experience and let people come to realize it's something that they can do and that they will love doing. But yeah, of course, like I said, it is a basic program. It is really designed to get you started. And as you commented right at the very beginning, Dean, you can GM for years and years and years and always find ways to hone your craft and do it even better, and new tricks and techniques to make a great experience for yourself and for your players. And so there's always more to learn. And so there's always room for there to be, more seminars or activities or things. But that is, we definitely built this program on a sort of a keep it simple, stupid basis. Like, we really wanted to remain focused specifically on helping people take their first step.
Nice. Oh, and we have someone who's disagreeing with everything we're saying. They said ultimately, KetHub says ultimately we need to remember it's you versus them, and the only way to win as a GM is when you kill all the characters to show dominance. But then he said he's switching, right. But I don't think so, because established dominance. Always abort the feet. Never take the fetal position.
Right. Yeah.
So that being said, Charles, if we were to, actually get ready to sit down tonight and let's just say, we were gonna get, talk about getting a game going and stuff. What's your approach? How do you introduce someone, who say never sat down at a gaming table? What would be that,
Yeah. So you're talking about somebody like bringing a new player to the table. I think there would be, I'd approach it differently if I was at a table full of new players versus if it was one player joining a group. I think because that's a lot, that player then has a lot of examples around them they can see and emulate, and so it's easier to kind of bring them in. But if it's an all new group or you're playing with a small group and many of them are new players, I think just just reminding them that we're going to do something that's sort of like a movie or a novel, only we're all going to decide how things go, and that all the rules are designed to help make that easy and effective. It's not like a board game where you're sitting down to play the rules by the rules per se, and then you get a result. Instead, you're building toward a result, and the rules are helping you get there. And I think that you have to kind of feel out what the stumbling blocks are for the players. Some players get right into it. They have no problem. Okay, cool. This is going to be so much fun. Other players are so used to board games or video games or whatnot, they expect to be constrained. And so you kind of have to lean a little bit into that. Well, you can do anything you want that's within reason for the situation and for the character, and you can try it, and then the rules will help us decide whether or not you can succeed at it. I don't know if that punches through to the question, or if
No, I think that's a really good answer to the question, because here's the thing. When we're sitting there trying to explain to people, especially when it comes to new Gamemaster Month, this is supposed to be something for you to be able to sit down for the first time. So,
right.
All of our the conversation that we're having here, this is to expand our minds as well as, get people prepared to go into New Game Master Month with a, with a clean slate. So,
Right.
And I think that's another thing we should point out is that, just don't put high expectations on yourself. I don't think you need to put expectation. Just the biggest expectation is to have fun. Make sure it's a fun exercise.
Right.
So,
There's no like gatekeeping that you have to pass through. There's no standard that you have to test to or anything like that. You're much like we tell the players, right? You can do whatever you want, and the rules exist to help you get you to a fun experience. That's same for GMing, right? You can you don't have to adhere to anything specific. You just you use the tools that you have to create the type of experience that you enjoy as a player. I will say that New Game Master Month is accessible. I hope it's accessible to people at all levels of experience. But the assumption is that we are talking to gamers. So we're talking to people that already know what an RPG is. They've already been players. They already have some exposure or experience. And they're saying, how do I go from where I am, sitting at the side of the table here playing a character to being the person who in the GM's table? I think those people will have the easiest time dealing with New GM Month. It should be accessible for everybody, but the assumption is that these are people who are already invested in gaming.
Got you. Gee, that's actually pretty cool. So we just got another question from Jason C. Shadowmane. He says, behind the scenes, he said, do you or others reach out to other companies to get them involved in New Game Master Month, or do they need to reach out to you?
It's both. We've had companies that have said, hey, you guys do this thing called New Game Master Month. How do we get involved? But also, every year, I try to set up a couple meetings like at Gen Con or other events with some companies that I think would be great to bring on board and I talk with them about it. And so it's both ways. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. And we have, it would certainly be possible to shoot out contacts to every single company on the planet and say, quick, jump in. But over the past decade, growing at an average rate of about a company, one new partner per year has been great for the program. I think it gives us a manageable pace of growing it, because at the end of the day, there's no money in it for MCG. It's all my time essentially, and Kate and Olivia and others that are involved in promotion help us get the word out, as do you, Dean, and the wonderful folk at the CU. But running the program, it's a pro bono activity that we do at MCG. It's no, and I have to take all the stuff from the partner companies. They send me all, I coach them on how to build their lessons, and they send me all the data, and I build it into the website and set up all the posts to go live and all that sort of stuff. So there's limits to how much of my time I can spend. If I had 50 companies that wanted to join all at once, I probably struggle with that. But we do want to keep growing it year over year.
Okay. Spike Maple Syrup said, have you thought about getting content creators to contribute too, like some YouTubers, etc.?
I think that there's definitely a role. People want to help promote this. I think that there's ways that they could help draw attention to the program and also help, provide insights that the people in the program would benefit from. So, if there was a YouTuber who knows a lot about GMing and, has a lot to say about it, could run something and talk about one of the lessons, or here's what New Game Master Month is doing this week. Here's my thoughts on that. Here's my suggestions for GMs. Here's my thoughts. I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think we did that a couple of years in a row. We covered every topic each week. So, maybe we'll get back to doing that as well.
Nice.
What else was there?
Yeah, I think Anthony had all of the questions, and Anthony,
yeah, and he had the majority of them.
Well, we don't have to talk about this. We could talk about all kinds of stuff.
Well, I was going to bring up, since, because I think we kind of got everything with New Game Master Month kind of covered. So I was going to bring up, like some things on the horizon. We got
Sure.
Gunslinger Nights, High
Yeah.
Noon to Midnight, Neon Rain.
Mm-hmm.
What good news can you tell us about those items and other things that may be coming?
Yeah, so you just mentioned 3 of the Cypher System titles that are slated for the spring of 2025, and they're all moving through their process. And they also have their zines that go with them. So each one of those is a hardcover genre book. Well, Gunslinger's Night's the setting, but Neon Rain and High Noon and Midnight are genre books, just like our other genre books. So I don't want to misspeak, but Neon Rain and its zine, I believe, are fully through editing. High Noon at Midnight, I think, is in the lead. It is moving into layout, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on this because I'm actually, particularly since we just came out of the holidays, I don't have my finger up quite on the pulse of where these things are, but they've all been moving along really nicely. The Wellspring for Invisible Sun is on press. Actually, the book itself is on press. The other components, the handouts, the box itself, those other components are actually already well into production. Yeah, we have a new Magnus Archives campaign coming up, not too far away from that, and that is looking super cool. Magnus Archives is just such a really neat setting. I've been building the campaign for that, and part of what I was doing just today was writing up about what is the Magnus Archives? If you're not familiar with it, what makes it different from whatever, Call of Cthulhu, or the content of Stayed Alive, or anything, or Old Gods of Appalachia, or any other horror game you might be playing. And so it was really nice to kind of talk about how that's a game where you start off with this sort of here's a creepy thing and you investigate it and some horrible stuff happens, and then next week there's a completely different creepy thing and some horrible stuff happens and you investigate it, and so on and so forth. And then the campaign goes on and you start seeing how these things are connected. They're not just random creepy things. It's not just a encounter of the week type of scenario. And then as you begin to sort of come to terms with that and understand that over the course of the campaign, then you begin to realize, oh, holy shit, this is affecting me. This is changing who I am as a character. My involvement in what's going on here is more than just as an outsider combating against it. It's going to affect who I am and how much of my humanity do I want to put at risk in order to save the world or whatnot. So I think it's got this really neat sort of arc to how the podcast had this, of course, as its basis, but the game does too, of how you transition from sort of characters who are uninitiated necessarily in the supernatural, or maybe a little bit, but everything just seems like weird, creepy stuff, to how it's all connected, to how it goes much deeper than that. It has how it impacts you as a character. I think it's a really neat game. So that's we're gonna have more content for that, and crowdfunding real soon. So I've been working on that. What else? Well, I'm sure I'm missing stuff. We've got, we're making our plans for Gen Con. We're making our plans for all conventions for 2025. The adventures we're going to be running at those conventions. Yeah.
Scott Zilzaddy made us say he wants to know how MCG did not get the IP for Welcome to Night Vale.
So, it's funny. We did not aggressively go out and beat the bushes for either Old Gods or the Magnus Archives. In both cases, they kind of sort of came to us, or the opportunities came to us, and we don't do a lot of licensed products. We do mostly stuff that comes out of our own imaginations, or out of Monte's and the design team's imagination, because I don't want to sound like I'm taking credit for any of that. But they were properties that we really, really liked. And so when the opportunities came along, we pursued them. And so we also internally were like, well, we should get Welcome to Night Vale, and then we'll have all 3, right? But that wasn't what we were seeking to do. And so that opportunity, it wasn't an opportunity that we were asked to do or came our way, and we weren't necessarily seeking a third one. But I can, we also internally joked sort of the same thing. It would be this top level triad of great horror podcasts to build games out of.
Nice. Scott also asked, would MCG be interested in starting a podcast to build games around later?
That's a really interesting idea. Let me zoom out just a little bit and say, we've done fiction. We've done fiction for The Strange. We've done fiction for Numenera. And think we have an appetite for more. And when I say fiction, in those cases, it was novels that were published in a conventional novel format. But we've, at times we've thought, wouldn't it be cool to like see a graphic novel made? A podcast is really interesting. Ultimately, that's not the core of what it is that we do, right? Like that's the type of thing where we have visions for our games and our worlds. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of the design team here. They have visions for our games and our worlds. They have stories they want to tell, and going into other media outside of the games themselves is not out of the question. But we have limited capacity, we have limited bandwidth, and so focusing on making the games, which are really at the core of what we do, is where that bandwidth ends up going. But you never know what's possible. I will say that we have a lot of really super creative people on our team who do stuff outside of what MCG does. And Bear Whiter, our art director, is one of the key people for a podcast called Station 151. If you like horror and you like weird stuff, they just did their second season late last year. And it's gotten a lot of praise and had zillions and zillions. I mean, it's done really, really well. So I would totally check that out. It's not one of our properties, and it's not officially connected with MCG at all, but it's a side project that Bear worked on, and it's really cool.
It really is. I listen to it on my long rides, but to and from. I have to drive an hour to work and from work, and that's my go-to listening. Just finished the season finale, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great story, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Spike Maple Syrup had a question where he says, for a Cypher-specific question, since it's such a customizable game from setting to characters, what advice would you have for homebrews? I make a bunch of homebrews in Cypher system for my table, descriptors, focuses, etc., and would love to get insight on what kind of things to prioritize there.
So I GM a lot. I GM in a lot of Cypher system, and I bring in an awful lot of stuff that I mean, not an enormous amount, but I've converted stuff from other games. I ran a Paranoia campaign, not a campaign, but a series of Paranoia adventures under Cypher, and I just had I built a type called clone, and that was everybody had to play the clone type. So I've been there, I've done that, but really I think that'd be a great question to ask one of the design team members when they're on the CU. I think they'd probably be better positioned to talk about that, and they do that all the time in a non-homebrew environment, right? When they're building out a new game like Old Gods of Appalachia or something like that, and creating the content and the character options and stuff. Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to answer that.
Okay. Real quick, oh no, Scott, you had a question. You were saying that this was great, good timing for you. You bought Discovery and Destiny and joined the server. Trust me, get on the server, talk to people there, join New Gamemaster Month. They're showcasing Numenera. You will get a plethora of help from all different directions. And the biggest thing I would tell you is just take a deep breath. You don't have to listen to everything everybody says. Pick what resonates with you, because you're going to get a lot, and it can be overwhelming. We have some people on the server who have a lot to say.
Yeah. I will say, the community on the CU is great. It is a fantastic place to go to get insights into really anything that we've talked about here today. Also, just sort of throw out there, not to throw out any competition or anything like that, but we did just open a subreddit for Mighty Cook Games today, I think. So if you're on Reddit, if that's your platform of choice, that's a place you could start to go. Obviously, it's brand new, so it doesn't have an awful lot of traffic there yet, but that's something to check out. But really, the heart of the community is the CU. I would recommend to everybody to be a member of the CU, and you will not find a more supportive and knowledgeable group of gamers than you do on the CU.
Okay. And I think we got just a couple more questions. Starheart Dragon said, is there an IP you would, if you could, get rights to and want to do in Cypher yourself?
So an IP that I would love to build a game around, and I think Cypher System would be fantastic for it. So a personal favorite of mine is Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind. I'll be honest, I've I've thought a lot over the years about how to run a campaign, just personally. I haven't quite sort of cracked the nut of what it is that makes a great, like I could definitely write some adventures that would work really, really well. How do you create a world out of that serves every game, that anybody could pick up and run their own games out of? I haven't quite figured that one out. So I love that IP, and I think it would be a fantastic game setting. I love the Expanse. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I've run a lot of science fiction that's Expanse-like in sort of like where it is. Obviously, there is an Expanse game, so that's not an IP that we're out there shopping around from. But I know that there's a lot of people at MCG who love that IP. There are others. The key thing that I think is kind of like at the heart of the question is, what would we like to do? And I think that's really important when you talk about MCG and licensed stuff, is that we are not a company that spends a lot of time looking for licenses, but we do like doing licensed games for properties that we really love, that really speak to us, that we are personally invested in. That's where you'll find us doing RPGs that are not our own properties.
That's awesome too. But MCG always comes through. Scott Silzaddy says, any MCG games that you would suggest that a new MCG GM not start with?
Yes, I would. So new to MCG or new to GMing, I would say that even if you're, I would say that Invisible Sun is a daunting game for a GM who's new to that process, right? A great game, a fantastic game to GM when you're really comfortable in that space. It is so rich. There's so much to sink your teeth into. And as I mentioned earlier, it does draw in an awful lot of the players into the decision-making about what the game is going to be about. So in some ways, it takes a load off the GM in that sense. So I would say that's probably not where I would start if you're a fresh-faced GM. I would also say we create games for a broad variety of GMing styles. We don't make games that are super crunchy and super technical. That's just not what we're into. But we go from Invisible Sun, which is a game so focused on its rich, in-depth stories. It's really designed to play in person. It's really designed to play with big, sweeping campaigns that are long running and allow characters to really develop and have these rich stories. And then we do games like The Devil's Daily Dogs, right? Which is designed to sit down for 2.5 hours and have a rollicking good time. And it's sort of fire and you can play it, play the same characters and create a little campaign out of it if you want to, but it's really not its focus. Its focus is, quick, zero prep, sit down and play in a really short period of time. Stealing Stories for the Devil is sort of along that line as well, where it's very episodic. It, again, definitely built to have a campaign to it, but 100% designed to play really well as single episodes and standalone adventures and stuff like that. But as I said about myself at the beginning of this thing, right, that is such a range of GMing styles, right? That I would definitely try to get a sense of what the GMing style of the game is that you're looking at and decide if it's right for you, because you've got great ambitions for a Stealing Stories campaign. But if you're like me and you struggle to come up with really brilliant ideas on the fly, maybe it's not, maybe you'd prefer to play Cypher System or Numenera. So understand what it is you're getting into when you look at our games is probably the only piece of advice I would give in terms of steering people toward one game or away from another.
And I would second with everything you just said, especially when it comes to Invisible Sun. Not that Invisible Sun is any harder to run than anything else. It's just way more involved.
Right.
I think the lore, of Invisible Sun is its biggest element. And you've got to be really comfortable with it. I think you've got to, get a little intimate with it, if you will.
Right. And you really are looking to sit down and play a lengthy, highly developed, highly engaged campaign. You and your players are really going to sink your teeth into this. And if that's what you're after, awesome. As a matter of fact, I personally, I love playing the game, and I'm looking at running my first campaign here fairly soon. I've been reading up on the books to solidify my knowledge of a world that I have been engaged with since Monte first pitched it to us back in 2014 or something like that. but now I'm like reading every word of the books to try and really know it well. So I love it. Can't recommend it enough, but it's got to be you got to be ready for what you're getting into to get the most out of it.
And I will, like I said, agree 1,000%. Looks like we got one more question, and it says it's from our buddy Variarte. He says, because MCG has a variety of games that serve different types of GMs and players, wouldn't it be better to showcase these games that are super easy to get into it compared to bigger systems?
Well, so I can see if there's a sort of like a surface logic that like a simpler game is easier to teach to GM or whatnot, but I actually personally think that a game that has a bit more structure, it's a bit more conventional in the way it's done and presented, like Numenera or a Cypher system, is probably a really great starting point for most GMs, because we just talked about Invisible Sun and how sort of rich and detailed and how much you really want to get into it, and that might be hard for a beginning GM. But I also think that stealing for the stories for the devil might also be hard for a beginning GM, because of the pressure it puts on you to think about things in a certain way, and bring ideas to the table very quickly, and have confidence that you're going to make calls on the fly really, really fast, and that you're going to feel good about those calls, and you're going to have the experience of past GMing to call upon when you're doing that. I think a game like Numenera, Cypher System, where and Cypher System derived games like TMA and Old Gods, Strange. These are all games where at the end of the day, how the game is GM'd is fairly conventional, and it gives you just the right amount of structure to feel like you're supported and feel like you've got a basis for making decisions that, if you're in that place where you don't have the confidence yet. So yeah, I think that's why we go that way. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. So, I think we've kind of touched on everything. Is there any final touchstone, something you want to hit us up with? You got any like tidbit that you can get the community excited about, or?
Well, I will say I do quick shout out to anybody that happens to be watching us on Moonbeam right now. If you're a supporter of that campaign, you have access now to Moonbeam as of today. But it's still in its closed alpha. So if you're not on it or one a supporter of our crowdfunding campaign, you won't be able to get on it yet. But it is coming soon, and it's shaping up to be a really, really cool platform, and we're really excited about our ability to build community there, and your guys' contribution to that community, and the many we did the Cypher Stream Creator Fund last year, where we picked 10. We gave grants to 10 streamers who are going to be doing programming related to MCG's games. All of that's going to be in Moonbeam. It will also be in other places. So if you're not on Moonbeam or you don't care to be there, you'll be able to catch many of these things on YouTube or Twitch or wherever else they stream. It's not exclusive, but it is a really cool environment. And I think we are there right now, this very minute. So some people might be watching us there, some of those alpha users, but they're in addition to you guys going out on Twitch, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I think that's really cool. And I would definitely encourage people to sign up for the Magnus Archives Tangled in the Web. The sign up page is up now. You want to get notified when this campaign launches. You get a free, cool glow in the dark patch if you're one of the people that signed up or pledged in the first 48 hours. So definitely sign up for it, because that campaign, I'm just so excited about how we're putting that together.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to like all of this, Invisible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the new stuff for Invisible Sun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like you do want to eventually run a full campaign in Invisible Sun. I played in a couple, but haven't had the opportunity to run a full campaign. But as you said, that is a chore because, because of the scope. But the one nice thing about it is something else you brought up earlier, is that's the other kind of aspect, because you're going to sit down with your players and build out those character backgrounds and so on and so forth, which is going to feed into whatever your overarching idea is. Probably going to switch some of your ideas. So, it's going to be a lot of fun with that. That being said, so Charles, as always, thank you for coming on to the show. We love MCG, everything that they do for the community, for
Thank
us.
you.
And, come back and see us. And I think you just surpassed Sean again. So Sean is going to have issues with this.
Yeah. Well, it is always a lot of fun to be here and hang out with you guys, or today just Eugene. But I'm sorry that Al was having so much trouble. But it's always fun, and always fun seeing you guys live when we're at shows and events, cons together. That's always cool. And thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, I'll
and
see
thanks
you
to
at all,
everybody that showed up to hang out.
I'll see you at all the cons this year. That's the plan, is to make everyone this year. So
awesome.
Everybody out there, if you like us and you like what we do, give us a follow here on Twitch. You can follow us on our Discord. You can join our YouTube channel. You can join us on Facebook.
Hey,
Did Anthony make it back? Yes.
Anthony.
Well, you know what? Take us home, Anthony. If you like us and you like what we do.
One second, Anthony cannot be heard by the stream. I don't know what's going on, but I know the stream can hear me. Anthony did not come back up on the stream, so close it out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yes, we can hear you. Just stop. Let's just end it.
Let me finish. If you like us and you like what we do, I said all of that part. You can follow us. You can give us a little donation on Ko-fi. You can go to our online store and buy some nice merch like I'm wearing. And, we love you guys.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. Sorry again about all the technical issues. But yeah, this will be back up on YouTube tomorrow if you didn't see the whole thing. And yeah, thanks again, Charles, for coming on talking to us about New Gamemaster Month. It's been a blast, and thank you everyone for asking those great questions. We had a lot of great questions from the audience today, so thank you for that. And as usual, from us at the CU, we will see you later. Peace.